Hi there! Today we're going to be making this card, and let me show you some of the things that we're going to use. Several of them can be swapped out for other products. I'm using a stencil that I got at Hobby Lobby back in the home department where they do the home stencils. Those are very plentiful and they're cheaper than the ones in the scrapbooking section, and they work really well. I have a stamp. You can use any greeting stamp that you want, any Christmas greeting stamp. This one also happened to come from Hobby Lobby. It's called Warm Your Heart from Stampabilities, and I've had it a couple of years. But again, any greeting stamp that you have on hand for the holidays. Some Versamark ink. I'm going to be using a number of mists, and these are from Heidi Swap. I'm using the amethyst, gold, and Stencil, but you can use whatever colors that you have on hand. The one product that you would need to make the card the same way that I'm doing is some heavy gel medium. It doesn't have to be golden, it can be another brand, but this is going to create these pretty snowflakes and give them kind of almost an iridescent sort of look. And I'll show you another example here of some that I created in the blue color. So they can be, you know, whatever colors you want to use. You could put them on pattern paper, cardstock, or as the misted background that I'm going to do. To color my snowflakes, I'm using Perfect Pearls, and I'll explain why I like to use the Perfect Pearls, but you could also use ink to do your coloring. So let's get started with creating this card. I have a piece of white cardstock, 4 inches by 5 1/4. This could be any type of white cardstock. I get mine from the office supply store. It's really inexpensive, and it works just as well for projects of this type. I'm going to ink up my stamp after going over the paper with the embossing buddy, inking up my stamp in Versamark and stamping it. And now I'm going to add clear embossing powder to it. I'm going to go over this with clear embossing powder. Heat it up with the heat gun. We're using the clear embossing powder to create a resist, so that the mist that I spray on won't stick to this. Now you could use inks over the top, gelatos, lots of different things that you could put over the top. Working with the amethyst color, gold, and pewter, or Stencil they call it. Okay. So let's start with the amethyst, and I want to spray that pretty heavily over the words. That's what I want to really stand out, and then leave some of the other areas whiter. I add a little bit of silver to this for extra shine, and a little bit of gold for the contrast. And you can just let this dry, or you can take it out and put it on a heat-proof surface and use the heat gun. Okay, I'm starting to see the words coming through here. I'm going to give it just a little bit of heat, carefully so I don't burn myself. Finish drying it up. And I'm going to take a paper towel and go over those words to make sure that any of the mist that I sprayed is not stuck to them, and that will make them show up even more. Now to me that's probably enough. I can see them clearly enough because I got enough of the amethyst mist on there. If you don't, like on this particular card I didn't have enough amethyst mist, so I just took a little bit of purple ink and went over the top, and that made them pop even more. So I don't really think that I need to do that on this card. I think it's going to be fine just like it is. So now I'm ready to add my snowflakes. The one product you kind of need to make this all work is this heavy gel from Golden or from any supplier. Just need to have the heavy gel. The color that you add into it, though, you can use Perfect Pearls like I'm going to do, or you could use ink, like an ink refill. The reason I like the Perfect Pearls is it doesn't dilute this. because it's a powder, you can add as much as you want, and you're not going to end up with it getting a little runny. It's still going to have the same consistency. So I'm going to add probably plenty for one color. You don't need a lot of this unless you're doing several cards. And this is a fun one to do several cards because you're messing up quite a few things, so it's good to get a few cards out of it. Alright, just a little bit of each of these colors. And then I'm going to add the perfect pearls into it. I'm going to start with the gold. And I don't need to add much. The reason is that this color right now is white. However, it would dry clear. If I didn't put any color in it at all, it would dry really clear. So if I put too much color in there and the white goes away, you're going to be left with a lot of color, a really dark color. So you want it to look quite a bit lighter on your when it's wet than the final product is going to be. So that doesn't look very gold, but it will get gold once it dries. And to show you an example of another one, I did this blue one. It was a pretty light blue when it went on this white paper, but it dried darker. And you see the pretty iridescent look, not only the shininess from the perfect pearls, but just the gloss from the gel. Right, and I'll take my stencil. The more detailed the stencil, the better, because it just works better. So that's really nice, because a lot of times the real detailed stencils don't work as well with mists and things, so this is something good to use them for. This one has quite a bit of open space, so I'm going to have to be careful that I don't get my gel down underneath the middle of it. So I'll just kind of go over the top carefully and position it where I want it on the corner of this card here. And then I'm going to add my gold. I'm sure you can see that. And I'm just spreading this gently over the top. And I want it to, I don't want a real thick layer. I want, because this is a card, I don't want it to be really, really thick. So I'm spreading it reasonably thin, just a little bit of dimension. It'll have some dimension just from the thickness of the stencil. Okay, that's probably plenty for that gold, and carefully lift it up, and then I have a snowflake that will dry quite a bit golder than it looks there. Now I'm ready to do my silver one using the pewter color, and again I don't need to add a whole lot to get this silver. Mix that in there, and that's probably plenty. There we go. Alright, I'm going to wipe this off because I like this particular style of palette knife better. And this is just a set of plastic ones I picked up at Michael's. They were $1 or $2 for about 5 different ones in a pack. Now, when I work on the next one, I need to be careful that I don't lay anything over top of this one since it's still wet. If you were doing a bunch of cards, you could do all the gold ones and let them dry and so forth. So I'll lay this stencil so that it doesn't lay on top of that. And that's one of the nice things about working with snowflakes is they don't really have a direction to them. Alright, so let's add some silver over the top of this. I may not have mixed up enough silver. I may have to go and mix a little bit more. A little bit too stingy with this. Okay. Gently pick that up, and then I have a silver snowflake. And I want to do another one up here at the top, just a partial one. Let's see if I can lay this down here and get enough silver out of what's left. I may mix silver and gold and see what that comes up with. That ought to be interesting, since I have some of both left. Just doing a light little bit of color up here on the top as well. And you could do these in any color you want. A little bit of clear on the top of this. You could do purple snowflakes or blue snowflakes or whatever color snowflakes you want. any extra that falls off the edge, you want to get that off so it doesn't dry on there. Okay. And now I just need this to dry. So I set it aside, and it'll take a little while to dry, probably an hour or so to dry. But again, you could do a whole bunch of these snowflakes and then just let them dry. Oh, there's one other thing that I'm going to do before I let this dry, and that is I want to add my gem, and I don't need any extra adhesive. I can just put it right in here while this is drying, press that into the middle, and when it dries, it's stuck. Okay, we're all dry, and you can see how much golder it's gotten from the beginning as it darkens, and then the silver darkens. So we're ready to put this together. I'm going to use some glue dots because the spraying automatically makes the paper curl a little bit. So the glue dots will assure that this gets held down good. This paper was 4 inches by 5 1/4, so I'm doing a 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 piece of plum cardstock that I'm going to lay this on, and then I'm going to adhere it to some gray cardstock for the final step, and I could do that with glue dots or I can use a tape runner. And there's our finished card. And this was the first one that I made, and you can see obviously there's going to be some differences. This misting, the chain, slightly darker. I got a little more gold in this one than I did in this one, in the snowflakes. So you can always get some different variations to these. You can use other colors of perfect pearls or other colors of mist and get a whole different appearance to them. Thanks for joining me today.